Okay, we're group 2. I'm Julia.
I'm Daniela.
John.
I'm Katie.
Kylie.
Okay, so in question 1, it says analyze the Brave New World 1984, Harrison Bergeron, and Brazil. So, for me, I thought Brave New World and 1984 were pretty similar with the whole society aspect and how it was like dystopian and everything. I just thought it was just 2 different time eras to different them. Because
Yeah.
Brave New World was pretty like futuristic, and I feel like 1984 was kind of like just like dull and gray. Yeah.
And I think Harrison Bergeron and Brazil were a little more, I don't know, kind of like, especially Brazil was very, like, out there in terms of, like, his dream. It was a lot more, like, it had that aspect, I think, more than, Brave New World in 1984. Those were basically just, like, your basic dystopian life, but in Brazil there was, like, the whole, like, dream part of it. And Harrison Bergeron, there's also, like, I think that one's pretty similar to Brave New World in 1984 too. Well, more than Brazil. But I think Harrison Bergeron was like, I don't know, they were, I guess the idea of all of them was becoming equal, but I think that one they really like, they made them less intelligent, which was, I think, is a bigger similarity or a bigger difference than in Brave New World in 1984.
Yeah, they're like, dumbing them down is kind of like a relation to technology today. Like, it's become, like in the movie, it's become so advanced that they can literally like make you stupid, and you know that you're gonna be stupid, and you think it's like right, and now it's kind of just like, I feel like technology definitely is making me a little more dumb, like in the sense of like not wanting to study or like just not focusing on what I need to focus on because I have technology as a distraction.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like in like each of these, everybody's detached to from what's actually going on, which could also relate to technology and how we're not as focused on everything that we're doing and what's around us.
Right. And the last things in that question is analyze how they treat human nature. And I think with that, they definitely, especially in Harrison Bergeron, like you were saying, when they dumb them down, like they're taking human nature and like completely changing with the bands. They're completely changing like everything we know about it. Like you said, they're okay with the change.
They like all like in every single one of them they like control like not, I wouldn't say like everyone, but like always like the main character or something. Like they always like control what they feel or how they think or like it's always like they all like share that like similarity, which is like just like controlling like everyone into thinking or like doing or like just like being like everybody else, which is like what you said about equality.
Right. And I think the other thing with that, Harrison Bergeron in Brazil especially, you have like the one, how you're saying like the one, there's always one person that they're controlling like the most, how they feel and stuff. Harrison Bergeron in Brazil, they have the main characters kind of trying to break away, Brave New World 1984 too, I guess, but they're trying to break away from the system, and like they get, like Harrison ends up committing suicide. In Brazil, Sam Lowry, main character in that, and he like pretty much for the most part like goes crazy. Like those both have the commonality of like someone trying to escape the system, and like the system literally controls them.
That also reminds me of like a story. I don't know if it's that one, but it's the one that everyone is like taking a pill to like feel some type of way.
The Soma pills?
Yeah, that.
I don't know what Brave New World.
Yeah, well that is like, I remember it was I forget her name, but it was like she was just like trying to escape like reality, and she would like take this pill to like just feel some type of way for like a few hours, and she would like pass out or whatever, but like you still would come back to reality. And I think that people do that all the time with like drugs to like avoid feeling some type of way, like avoid feeling sad or like avoid having to think or whatever. And I think that
Right.
that's
And I think not only drugs, but I think that's what we're doing with our phones.
Yeah.
It's like everyone does that. I mean, yeah, some people do drugs, but even more like commonly, it's your phone. Like, I know when I'm like stressed, I don't want to think about things. Like, I pick up my phone. Like, if I'm upset about something and like I'm done thinking about it, like I'll pick up my phone. And it's like we also discussed earlier on in the class how you literally get like a release of dopamine when you get notifications. So there's that whole side of it too. Like, it really is similar to a drug in more ways than one, I think.
Kind of like makes people not want to talk to you too. Like if you see somebody like walking on their phone, you're not gonna say hi because you know that they're like not interested in talking to you either.
Right.
So
I can personally say I do that. Like if
Yeah.
I'm alone and like I like enjoy my company, but I have like noticed that I just feel like, well, like I'm alone, I don't want anyone to talk to me, so I'm just gonna pretend like if I'm talking with someone on the phone, which is
Yeah.
weird. That's so weird.
It's
Like,
like an
I do
escape.
too.
It is an escape.
You just don't want to be
Which is-
bothered or something.
Right.
And it's like also we talked about like an outlet for boredom.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
if you don't want to study for finals, like you go on your phone
Mm-hmm.
and just scroll till
Right.
you're bored of that,
It's just a
and then you
huge
find something else to do.
And I think the other, when we're talking about similarities and differences, Harrison Bergeron, I know they're controlling them. Like Brazil, they attempt to control Sam Lowry in more of a physical way. Like they all the people, like the whole idea of people coming crashing through the ceilings to like take people and like control what they do is a lot more physical than Harrison Bergeron, where it's mostly in your mind, because even when they do take the bands off at one point, that's like they're still in the same reverted way of thinking, and some people probably they want to put the bands back on, but there's a physical control aspect in some of these works rather than like it being in your mind, and like that's another difference too, like trying to escape your mind and then trying to escape physically from like the world you're in that you're forced to be in.
I think Brave New World was more like scientific with it because it talked about like embryos whenever they like classify them into the stronger and weaker ones. So the stronger ones would have like the better traits and the weaker ones obviously wouldn't. I feel like that plays a difference in it because Harrison Bergeron, they kind of all just have the bands. They're all stuck in like the same way of thinking, but Brave New World just classifies them pretty much.
Yeah, Brave
Right.
New World was definitely more like advanced in a way of like a world compared to like Harrison Bergeron, like you were saying. Like it's like it seemed like Brave New World, they were like kind of making everybody smarter in a way, through like science. But in Harrison Bergeron, they're literally dumbing everybody down.
Yeah.
Just by one
And I think
headband.
I think the other, like the huge similarity is the point of all these societies that they've created is to end suffering, because like in each of the works there is a point in which someone explains, usually to the main character, that like we are this way now because of in the past when there was violence and there were shootings and there was there was jails and stuff. Like they try to explain like that's their reasoning for creating this society where everyone's equal, is because they tried to end suffering.
Yeah.
Which is almost ironic considering
It's a new form. of
it's just
suffering.
another form of suffering, right?
Yeah.
And that's another thing with relating back to the human nature. Like people were suffering in the past world because that is human nature, and now they're just trying to like eliminate that whole aspect of like mistakes and like people not being perfect, which is not possible.
Did we talk about like relationships yet?
No.
Okay, so in Brave New World, I kind of felt like everything was like I wrote down that relationships with people weren't long lasting or anything, and there was just like always an issue. In like 1984 with Julia, they couldn't be together either, and he ends up hating like the girl who he used to love and all that. So they kind of have a twisted opinion on on
Yeah.
relationships. Like it's kind of backwards. Like if we did that today, like
But
you're
similar,
allowed to do whatever.
right. Harrison Bergeron, there's like his obvious like
Mhm.
love interest.
Yeah.
That's like they take her and they like clear her memory because they're so adamant about them not being together. And Brazil is just like that idea of the love interest is very like obscure almost because he's like in his dreams he's seeing her and that's what he's like reaching for when he doesn't even know she exists because it is a dream, which I think is pretty wild too.
Yeah, like there's in every single one of these there is an issue with like the relationships they're having
Yeah.
with people. Like
Yeah.
it could never just be.
Which is kind of exactly what technology is to
Mhm.
us. Like nowadays with like relationships, like
They've changed.
there's literally relationships that exist because of phones
Right,
or technology, and like
right.
if you're not like texting them or talking to them through your technology, then like your relationships can fail. It's kind of just like
Which is which is
exactly
weird
what it
because
says.
like years ago in a different century when there weren't phones, people still had strong relationships like our parents.
Through letters.
Yeah, they still had strong relationships and they weren't connected 24/7. So that kind of shows how human nature has changed, like because of phones, and like they're doing the same thing in all these movies. It's less of someone controlling us now, but like human nature is changing. Like we can't really have relationships now without phones. Like imagine if you were dating someone and your boyfriend or girlfriend like didn't have a phone to text you on. Like it would be
Yeah.
Like our digital detox,
barely
that was
work.
like
Mhm.
super hard.
yeah.
Like 15 minutes a day, you could only text them. Then they think like, oh, are you mad at me? And it's like,
Mhm.
no.
But you think about it, and like years ago, like even your parents, if they weren't together, like when they were younger, if they weren't together, they didn't talk to each other all day. They had maybe 15 minutes if they actually called each other on the phone.
15 minutes or
Yeah, there's
Right.
there's
Yeah.
also like these apps like Tinder and stuff where like people actually meet and actually like it's just like a
The
natural
relationship
hookup,
starts
but
on
like
right.
people can actually like
Get into like serious relationships off of it.
off
Right.
a digital like device, which is pretty like
It's
shocking.
Yeah, it's like kind of
Right.
insane.
Cause like you picture like back in the day and then today, or back in the day they didn't
Like,
even
you
have phones,
never-
like
Yeah.
yeah.
You never even like knew they existed.
Which is a huge problem because like relationships nowadays, like if you like a picture, like if a girl likes another guy's picture, that causes like a problem. That's
Right.
where social media comes in too. Like if a guy likes another girl's picture, then that's like a huge problem for like the relationship or whatever. At least not to me, but like I know
There-
people
yeah.
that,
I know
that
people
do
too.
that.
Yeah, I feel like people take too much time with it, like constantly like looking at people's likes and everything like that.
Mhm.
Like
And just
it's not that
focusing,
deep,
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I feel like we can move to this.
Yeah.
yeah, me too.
Okay. So making connections to other works in the class, including burnout, arguing religion, technology, and the character of contemporary life. I know with burnout, I when I'm like reading Brave New World 1984, watching Harrison Bergeron in Brazil, I was thinking the most about burnout society, I think, because these people are almost, as I was seeing it, like a product of a burnout society, in more ways than one, like just how people, like how easily people picked them up and like controlled them and put them in like this system. I think the burnout society relates to that, and like life almost like failing as it was before because of burnout, literally.
I was thinking the same thing, like through like all these books and stuff, like 1984 and all that, it's like there was no originality and there kind of wasn't an achievement society because there was no use for somebody to be like better than the next person. It was kind of just like everybody was the same, like everyone was complete,
Right.
yeah, like complete equality for all these people. So nobody was able to like stand out, and if you did, it was kind of like a problem. Like Harrison Bergeron, they made him more stupid.
It's just like
Because he was
conforming.
smart, yeah.
People just give up and conform, like, just.
Right.
Yeah.
I think also with the competing, how you were saying, that's another like flaw they're trying to fix in all these like movies. They're trying to make it like the perfect equal world. In Burnout Society, one of its biggest things is like everybody's constantly competing. So I think almost in the movies you can look at it as they were trying to like not create burnout in their like perfect societies. So they took away the idea of having to compete socially or in work.
And making it seem like if you're different, then it's like bad.
Yeah.
Because like they made this kid seem like he was like completely like no like
Yeah.
like when he was like I think he had like an A and like, the teacher was like
papers.
she was like you're gonna fail again or something
Yeah.
like that because he kept failing his grades.
I think what we were describing was hyper individualism, which is just the individual's like supposed to be limitless to self-create, but now with hyper individualism, it's like a society that produces burnout.
I don't even think like for Brave New World in 1984 they were trying to create like a perfect society, but it kind of just led to like people revolting and stuff like that. So I mean like people have protests and stuff like in our society, but the ones that they had in here was just completely like not what you would see for us. So I don't know if you could even call that a perfect society.
Right.
I guess we could talk about arguing religion a little bit.
Yeah.
So basically, his arguing religion was like creating discourse about like how to properly argue and debate religion correctly, which not a lot of people know how to do because people nowadays think that whatever their family grew up as or whatever their religion is like what everyone else has to believe, and no one can just agree to disagree really nowadays.
Yeah.
I feel like Barron's like purpose for this book was to invite those who have like strayed away from religion to like possibly revisit and explore their faith.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like none of these involved religion at all. I feel like they were science-based, which is kind of what I talked about in arguing religion. I put science proves certain things, which it does, but like nobody has anything to like believe in any of these books. They kind of just exist without a purpose.
Yeah,
So
and arguing religion can kind of help you decipher what your purpose is, maybe.
yeah,
Yeah.
Give you some
And then-
solid.
Right. One of the ideas of religion is giving people a meaning in the world, and like more than meaning, like hope too. And I know like in these societies that created the fourth society in Brave New World 1984 and Bergeron in Brazil, they don't want the people who created the societies, they don't want people to have like another hope or another like meaning behind their life. They want them to be like they just don't want there to be another meaning. So I think that was like the elimination of religion contributes to the fact that they believe that the system is like the be all end all
yeah.
if you want a perfect society.
Like 1984, they looked up to Big Brother, but nobody was even sure like who
Right.
or like what was his purpose. Like they had no clue. They were kind of just
Right.
following it because that was what was normal in society.
That's what they're supposed to follow. Like that's what, and that's how they created it. That's what they wanted, like to be everyone's meaning of life. So I think that's another reason for like the absence of religion in all these works.
The kind of like not understanding like what your purpose is kind of relates to when Barron talked about like the connection of human progression to like search engines. Like the brain is a
Yeah.
search engine, and we're always like wondering like what like what's the truth behind something. And Barron kind of pointed out that humans, once we're able to speak, like once we are able to speak, we're always asking why until we are told
Yeah.
like no, it's like you're annoying, like stop talking to me.
I know in one of my readers' responses I kind of compared it to like how a child, when like they're young, is always asking why until you give them a sufficient answer. So that's just the idea of searching for like, people aren't okay with like not having an answer. Like even like if you go on, I know in the book they discuss too, and so did Dr. Walks in class, how like you can go online and you like search one thing and it kind of just leads you down like a rabbit hole. Even with like Instagram and stuff, and I know we do that all the time. It's like you fall down like this like hole of questions just by asking new things, and you can end up somewhere that like you didn't even plan to be.
It's kind of like the base for all these books and movies too. It's like they're the people who are questioning things and like trying to figure something out and trying to find an answer to the way their life is, pretty much.
Right.
There's like no democracy at all either. It's kind of just like there's no say for the people. It's just like the head person that they follow. So that's totally like a major difference from our society and theirs, because we do get a say, obviously.
Right.
But these people are just out of the loop pretty much.
Right. And I think that's another thing. I keep going back to like the idea of them completely like changing the basis of human nature and how like they think it's like acceptable. That's another thing, like human nature, you want answers, and you want the bigger meaning, which also like relates back to the idea of religion and like asking why to everything. And I think in all these books they eliminate that, so that's another way in which they're like completely changing human nature, is like to eliminate people asking why, which is what we all do naturally, right, from when we were kids.
Yeah, they both, like the 1984 and Boardman both like talk about the disengagement of society, and like in 1984 people have let like the political party become like so ingrained in their lives that they just like stop thinking for themselves.
There's no creativity within the people to even ask why. It just doesn't exist.
Right. They don't need to ask why, because I think since they were like born, they were told this is why, and then that's what they follow instead of a religion, because that's their meaning in life.
Yeah.
Or even if they don't have a meaning in life, they're given the way that their life is going to be. They are told from a young age that, like in Harrison Bergeron, like this is who you're gonna marry. You're gonna be assigned to your job. Like even with like choosing the president or like any significant leaders, it's like picking a name out of a hat. So like why put in work and put in effort for something? Why make that the meaning in your life if you know it's already gonna be pre-decided for you? You have no say in it.
Also, I don't know if you guys like remember when we had like this discussion about like science and technology with Boardman. Like one of the connections I did was like the modern world has taken both like science and technology as being guided towards like a new like worldview, and like how the modern world and the contemporary life have been like shaped by technology, and how he says like he was like rejecting the fact that the instrumentalist view sees technology directly as the value neutral tool, and the pluralist view, I didn't understand that well, but like that's how he like connects like science and technology as being shaped like to this new like modern world.
Yeah.
Right. And I think along with this and arguing religion, a huge part of it is people not being able to have those discussions about religion. And I think there was a part in it where Bishop Barron like mentioned saying that you're intolerant is one of like the worst things you could say in our society today, because it's so like it's wrong. It's considered so wrong to not even like open your mind to other possibilities or letting other people speak. So like I wrote in one of my responses that like being intolerant is one of the worst things you could be in our day and age.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like with all these films, like the dystopian films and books, it's like they don't have, that's another aspect they lack. They don't have discussions with each other about religion, and they don't have to open their minds to other ideas. There is not really such a thing as intolerance, especially in Harrison Bergeron. I think they don't even have the like brain capacity to process that. So that was their way of making it like the perfect even world.
Yeah, the girl he was on a date with was so stupid. Do you
Yeah.
remember? Yeah, like they were just totally opposites. But I also wrote down religion is a solution and source of culture, orientation towards death. So they don't even know what's gonna happen to them after they die. At least like if you're Catholic, you think you're gonna go to heaven, but like for them it's kind of just like you die.
Right.
It's just nothing.
There's no meaning.
It's just
There's no higher meaning, at
Yeah.
least. Especially with even though they do have things such as like Big Brother and like, I don't think in Harrison Bergeron they don't know that there's a bigger power. But Brave New World in 1984 they do, and they're like, that doesn't give them a reason to live, or not to live, but doesn't give them a meaning in life. I know with like religion it gives you like, if you're Catholic, the idea of heaven or hell, and like that kind of guiding your morals to an extent. But in this, like, Big Brother is kind of guiding their morals, but it doesn't give them anything to like, after death. It's like, there's no point after death.
Yeah, Big Brother like doesn't necessarily benefit them in any way. It's just their leader pretty much.
Right.
It's kind of like solipsism when you create your own reality and like if you have like the inability to communicate like what you think because you don't even know what your words mean to you compared to what they to other people.
Right. I think, I don't know, even with Burnout Society too, like I mentioned before, they're trying to eliminate that. I think, like, these books, all three of them in question two, Burnout, Arguing Religion, and The Character of Contemporary Life, they bring about issues with like human nature, and then you look back at all the works of question one, and for the most part they're all trying to eliminate the issues in those books by creating an even equal society in which you're just told to do and you do it.
I feel like a lot of people in our society are like pushing for equality for everybody too, which is good, but the equality in 1984 and everything is bad.
It's like too advanced.
It is,
Right.
and it's not, like it is fair, but at the same time it's not, because there's no opinions or anything. Like if you're gonna push for equality, that's fine, and everybody's opinion should matter, but it doesn't in 1984 or any of those books. Like you could just see everything being completely like flat, like there's just no depth to any of the conversations or stuff they said.
Right. That's the one. Sorry.
I was gonna say that there's no honor. So, like Barron talked about, he says the best people or most virtuous people are often least praised, and honor is just the icing on the cake instead of being the cake.
Right.
And he also said goods are guided outside themselves. So it means we want to be good and spread our knowledge and culture to others. Even the worst sinner is choosing what they think is good to them. So kind of like in Harrison Bergeron, like the society that they had, they kind of wanted to spread like the knowledge they had,
Yeah.
even though it wasn't good and like kind of held them captive a little bit.
Sure.
But that was like their way of achieving happiness, even though they couldn't leave and couldn't start families. And
Right.
Yeah, there should have been like praising Harrison Bergeron, and instead they were just making him like, they were like
Yeah.
degrading him.
Because didn't they like they didn't let him leave so he could like still be smart or whatever, right?
Yeah.
That's why he was like in that place where he couldn't like even step outside or anything.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
had
because
one
his family thought he was dead.
Yeah.
And whenever he like hacked the TV system, like everyone it showed like his family on the couch and they were just like they didn't even know who he was, and they were, and like other families like didn't even Like
Right.
they couldn't even grasp what he was trying to say. Pretty much,
Right, like it's past the
they
point
thought
of
it was
comprehension.
because
Right.
and
And And when he did, their solution was for him to go on like that talk show and say like, oh, it was a joke, like that was just for entertainment. People like bought it right away. There wasn't
It's
even
like
a
giving them
question
nothing.
of whether or not that was true. And then the part that like kind of shocked me most is like to get through to people, he literally had to shoot himself on live TV. And there's a good chance a lot of people thought that was just comedy too. And that's probably how they like wrote it off if the movie were to continue, was, oh, it was just for your entertainment, like it was a joke. People would have bought it. There was nothing to get through to the people, like the common people. If we're looking beyond the main character and all these works, there's very few things you can do to get through to the people who are so stuck in the system and like the new, because they've changed human nature.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, even after he killed himself, the people probably wouldn't even have understood it, like, the point he was trying to make. They probably would have just been like, oh, he's dead.
Right. And I think Brazil, there was like, I think the standout in that for me was that, like how it kept flashing to like his dream of like, he was dressed in like all crazy colors and like something that never would have happened in real life, and he's looking for this like woman who he finally finds. And if we're like relating that back to arguing religion again, that's like his higher meaning in life. And I think that is why he like is able to break out of the system, is because he finds something like to go for, like something meaningful. Exactly, like he has a meaning in his life, whereas a lot of the other people don't. And that's why they're kind of blinded to the situation and don't look for a way out. They kind of just accept that as their world.
Yeah, like in a lot of these texts, like, emotion is like, you're not supposed to have like emotion, you're not supposed to love, you're not supposed to make like true friendships to where you like tell each other things, and I think that just contributes to like, just the backwardness of society.
Right.
So in question 3, it says, describe human communication in a technological age. Do these feel the vision?
I don't think they do either.
I kind of think they do. I don't think we're gonna be like that in years. I don't think it's, no. I don't think,
Not
We're gonna-
every single person, unless they give us like a head thing that everybody has to wear.
like, there are certain people who are addicted to their technology, and there's people who just don't care for it. So I don't think we're gonna get to that point where everybody's relying on it to this extent. Like, Brave New World, they were doing all that stuff with the embryos and stuff. We're not. I'm hoping we're not, and I don't think we're going to get to that point.
Right.
I just feel like, you know, like the video he showed us where like it was like all techie and like it was all, like, I know like we you guys don't think like that's like pretty cool, and I just know like that's gonna be a thing
Right.
because
Yeah.
technology is just advancing and advancing and like everything's good. Like I just know we're not gonna use pencils anymore. Like it's all gonna be like all techie. Like
I mean, we
Right.
barely even do use pencils. Like, we
Right.
literally
We
use
type.
our laptop. That's
Right.
so.
But here's like my other thing. The only reason that I do have, I mean, obviously I hope that's not the future. I hope like these aren't accurate descriptions, but then I look at like our grandparents and our parents, and I doubt they thought that this was going to be our reality in however many years. So I think that like from that aspect, if we're removing ourselves from the situation, and you go like to 50 years or 100 years from when we were born, that no, I don't think anybody thought that this would be where we were at. People not knowing how to get places without like phones, or people having to communicate with their like significant others, like we were talking about, every single day. And there was a discussion in Arguing Religion of how technology and stuff has taken the place of religion, and people don't like see the need for it anymore because we have so much technology that it proves a lot of science right, and there's so many like ways to through technology. There's so many I guess what I'm trying to say is like people like our grandparents like had religion and were so strong in it, I think, because they had nothing else to like go off of. But now when we have all this information and it's accessible to everyone, a lot of people kind of think, okay, well, I'm reading this thing on the news or this journal or article about it, so how could religion be real? So I think technology has almost disproved a lot of religion for some people at least. But so I think that's one of my other things that leads me to believe that like less people are religious than there was 50 years ago.
I can't remember like what reading response it was, but it was about silence, how like we were like how you're supposed to worship God is by going to like the church and being silent. And I think that technology has taken like a big role because like you know how we would like bring our Bibles to the church and like we weren't like allowed to use our phones, but now like since there's like apps that have like the app like of the Bible, like everyone brings their phones and like instead of like being in the actual like Bible app, they're just using it. And like I feel like that plays like a big role too in like religion, because like people nowadays, like I'm not saying everyone, but like I know of like people that just don't just go to the church because their parents force them to, not because they want to.
Right, and I think the other thing that was the final readings we did this oral reading. With that, I thought that was really interesting because this year a huge theme has been like noise, and like we always the notifications on our phone or like literal noise like that, but there's always something like distracting us, like taking our attention away. And one of my connections with this oral readings was they were talking about silence and how technology kind of like distracts from that. And I know like even when I was younger, I would go to church and like there's like the extra like if we get there early, like we're sitting there for 5 minutes, I automatically reach for my phone because I was bored. My parents were like, no, like get off your phone, like you're in church. And I never understood why, because I was like, I'm not doing anything. Like I'm not missing the priest talking, so why can't I be on my phone? And the idea is like there is times when silence is necessary, and you don't always need to be connected, and you don't always need to be like curing your boredom, I guess, is like almost what we do with our phone. So I think like that was like almost enlightening to me, like to see where like look back and like see where I could have been silent, times that I like looked for noise.
I was gonna make a point back to what you said about that super advanced society. Do you remember with the video that we watched? That definitely will happen, but then again, you have to have the money for it. And then we also watched a video in class how I think it's like 7% of the world's population holds the majority of the money. So that's not even going to be us who have that technology, because obviously we're not going to afford that. It's going to be people who like are like famous and stuff that can afford it, not us.
Right.
Unless it like comes built into all these houses, but then the price of living would just go up too as well. And then I think it's kind of just gonna be stuck where it's at until people can have the money to pay for everything, which probably won't happen.
Right, which is weird to think about because you're talking about how everyone's not equal, how like there is so much difference like between our upper class and our lower class, and being able to afford like what we saw in that prediction or commercial, whatever it was, of all that technology in that house. Like, what if the goal is to get everyone to that point? And then there's like,
And it's like the books are
right, you're trying to make everyone equal, so everyone is using that technology, and like what if that is like the end goal?
Yeah, that kind of just like proves the whole like basis of this class is just like technology, like in our age, is just decreasing the meaning of human communication. And I think like we were talking about religion. I think religion was like a base of people's meaning in their life, and now technology is replacing that. And then it like leads to maybe a possibility where since we don't care, we don't have that much, we don't think we have that much meaning, like technology is just gonna replace everything and will end up being like the books we're reading.
Right.
I mean, I know a lot of people, there's like been a pretty big decrease in the people who attend like a Catholic church just because of like different viewpoints and stuff, and because there's not like equality, like the LGBTQ and like people who like support pro-choice, they don't want to be a part of that community because they can't see it from where they're coming from. So that's another issue too. Like people aren't even like bothering to go to church.
Right. And if we are talking about if these these texts fail in the vision of life in the technological age, like I just argued that people we made like the goal made to make us all equal, but then like I also can like look at the point of view where like we're all so different. I think even if these books were to become a reality or a little bit of a reality, we're so different and so many different viewpoints that I think it would be a lot of time before we ever reach that point. Because think about it, yes, there is a commonality. We're all attached to our phones, we're all attached to technology in some way or another, but there's also like there's everything now with strong viewpoints on LGBTQ, all of our differences, like, and who we believe should be president, or like how the country should be like run, and like stuff with climate change. I think, to me, that's why the idea of all of these seems so far off, because for us all to ever be equal is like, I couldn't see that happening.
I mean, equality is like a good thing. I'm not gonna say it's not, but like you can obviously see how it doesn't benefit anybody in these societies.
Right.
One thing I feel like the only reason, like one of the reasons we're not like the books we're reading in movies is because like the meaningfulness of human life is like dependent on social and cultural bonds, and like humans are social by nature, so I feel like technology still allows us to like share our viewpoints and lets a lot of people like talk about equality and what they think should be right and what they think isn't right. And I feel like if like, do you guys remember that thing that was like talked about where people wouldn't be able to go on their like be able to use the internet, or like some certain sites would be banned? I forget what it's called. And that's just like something like that is like scary because people use technology to voice their opinions. Otherwise, like how else would they? You know?
Right.
Like other than going in person, but nowadays like that's not really rare. I mean, that's really rare.
Yeah.
So it's just things to like think about.
I don't think we'll get to that point in our society either, like 1984, Brave New World, because we're kind of like the first generation to have technology. Like we're not gonna become as advanced as it's going. Like we're the first people to pretty much
For our
have
lives.
Have phones attached to us since we're like
future generations.
in kindergarten.
For future generations, like
Who knows?
not my problem, but as of right now,
Your kids' problem.
I don't think it's an issue yet. Like we do rely on it.
I don't
it's
think
just
we'll
more,
ever see it.
yeah, I just think for right now it's more convenient. It's not a problem yet. It's just where it should be. Like it helps us, and that's all that matters. Yeah.
I think the other thing, on the flip side, hypernormalization, this third question brings it up. We all like have kind of slipped into this way of living with us attached to our phones, not purposely. Like I don't think anyone ever realized like there was one point where it's like, okay, boom, everybody has phones. Like our parents like watched us grow up and almost watched it happen, but like we just grew up like that's what we knew. Like when we got to like 6th grade, it's like, okay, well I need the iPhone now because that's what everybody else has. It was no point like there was no point where there was this huge like shift. And I think when we think about books like Brave New World, 1984, movies Harrison Bergeron, Brazil, we think there has to be a point where like everything changed all at once.
Yeah.
And I think we've normalized so much having our phones attached to us and all the crazy things we do with it. Like, what if that's what happens with these societies? That's how they they just slip into it because that's what they know. Like as they grow up, like it's what's normalized for them. So I think that's the other thing. Like, I think that's how hypernormalization plays a role. That it's like that's just what you know, and that's what you carry on doing, and that's how you get to these crazy points.
I kind of disagree just because like I remember like whenever I was younger I feel like I grew up without like the only thing I grew up like when I was younger doing was like watching movies and stuff like that and like that's technology but then I remember like I grew up I didn't like use my phone or anything and when I was like 14 I got a phone and like all of a sudden my world like changed so I feel like it kind of did abruptly like technology did abruptly like affect my life that way and whereas like before I did not like care at all about like texting. I mean, I did to the like because you see it around that age when you see like everybody else is getting phones, like I want a phone. But before that, I feel like it was gradually like you gradually got more obsessed with your technology.
Do you guys remember like those sidekick phones? That was like it, like the thing, like that everyone wanted that, and it was like
all of a sudden, it's like, oh my god.
And I was like tutoring because like I tutor for like this one class I have, and I tutor like these two girls in this public school. It's called Wesley's and Ames and what it's close to
Yeah.
and she was like, "Oh, you look like a Visco girl," something like that. And she's like in first grade.
What?
Like I was like, what? How do you even know what that is? Like I was like, okay. And she was like, "We don't like Visco girls, but we like you." I was like, oh my god, like how does this first grader know, like even know what Visco is?
I think that's the other thing too. Like I know at the studio I danced at, there was girls that were in elementary school and they had iPhones, and I was like,
Yeah,
What's the purpose?
like that's the thing. Like I could never imagine being that young and having a phone. But like there's also probably our parents or like kids that are older than us, and when we started getting iPhones in 6th grade and middle school, they were probably like, what's going on? Because they didn't have, they're probably like, I don't know, they're thinking the same thing we do, but like it just keeps getting younger and younger, and I think that's why, like, 'cause it is normalized, like.
Like whenever I was little, I used technology, but it was like I would be on the computer all the time, but my mom would make me do like those like math websites and like the learning stuff. Yeah, like it wasn't like TikTok. It was like
yeah, but I
learning
think
stuff.
the kids nowadays have like the power to like manipulate parents, cause
They
like
do.
you know how
Parents
like
can't say no.
yeah, and they can say no, but like they just know how to like be bad or like not behave just because they don't have what the parents like what they want. Like parents don't give them what they want, so that's why they're like, no, like if you don't give me a phone, then I'm not gonna do my like chores or whatever.
I think
Like,
it's like too much of like a reward system, pretty much. Like,
Yeah.
you do one thing right, and then your parents are like rewarding you for like basic stuff that you should be doing.
That's almost, it almost like goes back to burnout society. Like the idea of not being able to say no, and like the idea that, well, I think burnout society goes the other way a little bit with saying like, thinking that saying no is so wrong because you want your kids to advance and you want them to do the best they can, so they like, it kind of like goes along with that idea that it's not possible to like not push your kids.
Yeah.
Do you guys think we're done?
I don't have anything left to say.
Pretty much covered it.
Happy final.